Okay, so today is the day that we're going to be placing this Acer Palmatum Cherries Jubilee in the landscape. Now, if you recall, I did a whole video on growing, caring, choosing, siting Japanese maples in your landscape. We did a little tour of the Japanese maples that we had here, and this is one of the new ones that I got. This is actually mailed to me, surprisingly. So it is looking a little crispy in some edges, but once it gets in the landscape and we water it in, it's going to start to acclimate better. And the only thing we're going to augment the whole with is actually Espoma Organics Biotone. This is a great starter, slow release fertilizer, but also helps with the transplant process. So that's really the only thing that we're going to be augmenting the whole with. Once we backfill it with our soil, which you can see we pre-dug the hole here to just site it properly, and we're going to put the compost and a mulch on top of it. But if you take a look at this plant, this is a dwarf variety of Acer Palmatum, so it's not going to get quite large. And as a matter of fact, I got it quite large. This is a number 7 container, which will say it's 7 gallons, but I think if you actually filled this up with water, it's more like a little over 6 gallons. That's just one of those funny nursery quirks that you have. But you can see this is I'm about 6 feet tall. This is a little over 6 feet tall already. So at year 10, it gets about 7 feet and 4 feet wide. So this is, I would guess that this is almost a 10-year-old plant, if not 10 years old. And then it's just going to get slightly larger after that. So there's not going to be intense amount of growth. But the wonderful things about Acer Palmatum that I'll just highlight here in this video is that it has seasonal interest all year round. So in the fall, this is going to get a bright yellow, lemony yellow. And we love the idea of just having, using this pond as a reflective pool or as a mirror, if you will, so that the sky and the leaves could actually then reflect in it and provide this beautiful picture. Now, the other thing I will say is that this has a seasonal interest more so than maybe some other Acer Palmatums, because this cultivar, Cherries Jubilee, which is off of the Sangukaku, which is the coral bark maple, you could see has this red coral bark. Acer Palmatums do lose their leaves in the winter months, so having this kind of red bark against snow is going to be very striking. Now you'll see that this is grafted. Most Acer Palmatums are actually grafted onto 2-year-old Acer Palmatums. So you can see that this one looks like where the graft was. And I just noticed this has a green stem. So this is probably the root stock that it was on. So I would cut this branch off because this branch is unlike, this branch. So what we're gonna do is, remove this. We sited it in the landscape, and you'll see when I put it in the hole what we're thinking about. So here it is. We'll probably have most of we don't want it to come too far into this direction, and since the light is coming from this direction, it'll probably grow a bit more towards there is what we're guessing. But we have lots of entry points here. You could see this tree from this angle, you could see the tree from multiple angles throughout the landscape, so you have to feel like you're comfortable with it. You could see the sycamore here in the distance, and the maples planted beyond, even that red Acer Palmatum in the distance, you'll be able to see it. So you're creating this kind of foreground, midground, background effect. And honestly, I dug the hole, and even you said it should be in a little bit further. We don't want to go too far in, because in times of wetness, this pond does rise quite a bit, and the Acer Palmatum doesn't necessarily want their roots in water. As a matter of fact, we took out some smaller quaking aspens that were here, which are probably clones of the larger quaking aspens here, and they're really close to the water, and they won't like that either. Quaking aspens don't last very long. Very good food plant for birds and animals, however, but we ended up taking out some of the smaller ones and giving a bit more space, basically an elbow room for this Acer Palmatum. So if you just want to step back and see it in all aspects of the landscape, that's really helpful. You can imagine what it's going to look like as it kind of grows. Right now, because it's a dwarf, it looks shrubbier. And it may be competing with this dogbane here. So this is the type, it's in the milkweed family, Apocynaceae. It's a very important plant for insects. So we're not going to remove this. We like to keep this a bit more of a wild border. Dogbane.
It has the same like color, you know.
Yeah, exactly. This dogbane will eventually die back, but you could see that it has these red stems, has beautiful white flowers, and it will eventually get yellow leaves. So it will complement, and this is a wonderful, like I said, a wonderful insect host plant. So yeah, do you feel comfortable with that, Sonder, now?
Yeah, it's in a good spot.
Okay, so what we'll do, grab this, because it is a beefy one. Take a look at its roots. It's the first time I'm pulling it out, actually. And yeah, it's not very root bound, but I'm just gonna kind of tease out the roots. I'm gonna do that closer to the hole so that some of the potting medium here we don't lose. And it's okay to be a little rough and tumble with the roots. We dug the hole quite a bit larger than what this root ball is. And we want to encourage the roots to go out. Even though this is a dwarf variety, it doesn't mean the roots are going to be dwarf. You want it to have a healthy root system. And the benefit is this is planted above the water, not in the water, and the roots could go towards the water if they want, if they so choose. And the important thing about digging this hole, I should say, you could see that, you know, we have fairly good soil. It crumbles, even though it's heavy in clay, and probably was augmented quite a bit with clay around the edges so it doesn't, you know, the water doesn't come out of the pond, right? But look, this is crumbling. It's very nice. It's not too wet. We haven't had a rain yet. It will actually rain later today, I believe, or tomorrow. So you can see that that's really nice to work with. You don't want to augment your hole too much and backfill it with really nice soil, because what happens is the roots like to stay in that nice soil. So you want to help the roots venture out. And what you'd like to do is actually scuff up the sides a bit. So we scuffed up the sides with this tool. Make sure I'm going to try not to drop this tree. I did drop this tool on my foot the other day, so not really smarted. So you could actually scuff up with this tool, just like it's a metal bar. We use it for digging posts and also digging tree holes. Okay, so I just scuffed that up pretty good. And I'm gonna get it a little bit closer to here, to this edge, and maybe push it out this way, and then step back and make sure that that's what you want to see. And then afterwards, I'll probably come out here, maybe not today, but in a few days, I'll come and start to clip off any of the branches that look dead or dying or broken that happened in transit. What do you think of that?
Yeah, is that there's this longer section plant that's growing towards the pond.
Yeah.
I think that's important that it does that, so that we're not going to have it in the path.
Yeah, and it looks pretty straight actually in the hole, so I don't need to have you holding it up, but I think that looks pretty good. We just want to make sure that it's planted upright, because obviously then if it's planted at an angle, it's going to start growing at an angle. So yeah, so what I just need to do is start filling up this hole. I will give it a little water in the beginning, and I'll come back and water this in. But that way, if I have water down here in the base, then the roots are going to be encouraged to grow down. And what I'm also going to do, in fact, before I put all this water in, I'll put a little water in, I'm going to use some of that biotone And that's the one thing that we're actually going to put in this hole is the biotone. We're not going to use any of that compost or any of that mulch until the end. So there we go. I'm gonna open this up. And we're gonna read the directions. When all else fails, read the directions on the back. I really encourage it because sometimes you're planting all different things. So application rates, 1 pound equals 3 cups. So that's really helpful. I got a little cup thing here. Wash it out if you're gonna use it in your kitchen afterwards. So the plant size of 5 gallon could use 2 cups. So that's a 7 gallon. So I'll probably go 2.5. It does have some slow release fertilizer on it already. So I'm just gonna go a little over 2 cups. And I'll take this out again. And I'm just gonna put that around in the hole. Right? And water that in. And again, that biotone, I use it often when I'm transplanting plants, especially something this established. I mean, it's a little shock to this plant system. It's been growing in a greenhouse or a nursery in a pot for all its life. And now you're, basically freeing it up a little bit and saying, okay, plant, now you could grow out in the environment. So I'm just gonna give that a good water. And what really benefits us is it's actually gonna rain, I believe tomorrow.
Just straighten out the tree a bit.
Oh, sure. Yeah, you can see probably better than I because I'm in it right now.
Yeah, from a distance you can see it easily.
Step back and see if that's straight.
Yeah.
Cool. And it did take me a while to actually dig this hole because the clay and the stones does give a little bit of a fight. Hit a couple roots too. There used to be a Japanese honeysuckle here that was formidable. There's lots of Japanese honeysuckles that were here. If you get clods of soil or clods of soil like this, you could just start breaking it up. Especially if you get the ones, where you have the grass growing. It's easy to get chunks of soil like that. Just gonna bring this in. And I will say that Japanese maples, oftentimes you find them growing next to conifers or azaleas in Japanese gardens. They do prefer a slightly acidic soil. Now we have a slightly acidic soil here. That's part of the reason why I'm not adding any soil acidifier here. But if you do, you could use like Espoma Organics Holly Tone. You could do that if it's in the spring or the fall and you're planting this. I'm actually planting this in really early summer, so I'm a little late to the game, but that's okay. I wanted to get it in sooner rather than later. So I'm not adding any of that here, but you can, especially if you have a more alkaline soil. If you have a neutral soil, I would say that's probably fine. I'm not actually displeased with our soil. It's been really nice to work with. Okay, so I'm gonna just water this in because remember, we're gonna add some compost and mulch to the top of this. And I like doing that because it gives some, again, natural slow release nutrients to your tree. And then the hardwood bark mulch, whether you choose to do that or wood chips or whatnot, that will be great for weed prevention. Now you see I actually came in here and weed whacked, and you have this vetch, you have the solidago really moving in. So at least this will give some opportunity for the plant to breathe a bit and establish without getting pressure from any of the herbaceous, more aggressive herbaceous materials moving in. Look at that beautiful compost. Again, part of the reason why you wouldn't want to augment your hole with this beautiful compost is that it will have a tendency to just want to grow in that hole and not explore its roots out. Okay, so I'm just gonna do this. And then I'm gonna add some of the hardwood mulch on top. You could already see the earthworms moving down into the soil, which will be great because they'll start to aerate the soil some more. Now, one of the things is we went to, what was it, Lowe's, Home Depot the other day. Oh man, they have their trees tented up like a volcano with mulch coming like a third up the whole trunk of the tree. It's such a shame to do that. You don't want to put the mulch up near the bark. Leave about 2 to 4 inches away from the tree because this mulch holds a lot of water. That's the beauty of mulch, is that it maintains temperature, holds water, but if the trees breathe out of their trunk as well, not just through their roots or their leaves. There's gas exchange happening everywhere. And if you put too much moisture around the trunk of the tree, especially around the graft, you risk rotting that tree. So make sure that the mulch is not up against the bark of the trunk. And please, please, please don't make it into a tree volcano. And now you'll notice this limb looks like it is actually on the graft. You see, it doesn't have red stems. So this is the selected cultivated variety of Cherries Jubilee. So I'm gonna come in here, and when I'm actually trimming, this will be one of the things that I'll trim off because I don't want to select for this tree. So any kind of root sprouts that you see coming off the rootstock, you could actually cut those back. It's not gonna serve the cultivated variety of the tree. And again, you wanna keep the graft above the level of the soil. You do not want to bury the graft either. So that is something to note when you actually pick all these cultivated varieties of Acer Palmatum. And there are so many to choose from. So, you know, there's no shortage of choice when it comes to Acers, and I'm grateful that the land here already had some of these so I could actually build off of it. But this one is one that I'm really excited to see, especially during the fall months and the winter months when you see that yellow and the red in the landscape against that snow. I think it's going to be absolutely exquisite. So zones 5 to 9 are probably the best zones for this. And if you're in that, you know, higher zone of zone 9 of a growing zone, make sure that you give it some shade during the day because it may be actually too hot for this. But here in a zone 5, zone 6, this is a perfect plant, and hopefully we have perfect placement here as well.
If you're finding value in the videos we produce, we'd love for you to subscribe and hit the notifications button here on YouTube. We're committing 10% of our Google AdSense revenue back to projects in the Finger Lakes region, so your viewership is not only appreciated, but contributes to the community here. We'll see you in the next video.